If you're looking for simplicity, an easy to make and cheap dish, this cherry tomato pasta is just what you need. Alright, starting out, I've got 600 grams of cherry tomatoes here. This is a mix. You don't have to use cherry tomatoes as well, and some of them might be a little bit bigger, but we'll sort that out in a second, and we want these to be whole if you can. Like I said, if they're all the same size, that's perfectly fine to leave them whole, but if you do have a couple of large ones, I recommend slicing them in half or into quarters, and you can just use regular tomatoes for this recipe. Now, I'm aware some people don't like sun-dried tomatoes. You don't have to use them. You can completely skip this step that I'm about to show, but we're going to use the oil as well as the sun-dried tomatoes. As for the oil, pour out about 2 tablespoons, which is 40 milliliters worth, into a container, and this is going to be used to saute our cherry tomatoes as well as the other ingredients. If you're not going to use it, you can just use olive oil instead. Now, as for the sun-dried tomatoes, this is 50 grams worth. We're just going to give them a rough chop. These ones did come in strips, so it's a lot easier to cut down, but if they're whole, you can just do the exact same process, making sure that they're all the same size. We are also going to need 3 cloves of garlic in this recipe. These obviously still have the husks on. An easy way to break them up is to just put them on your chopping board. Place the side of your knife down, then push down with the blade facing down as well so you don't cut yourself. Crush them, and then just peel off the skins, which should come off quite easily. With the garlic now peeled, this can then be roughly chopped and it doesn't have to be super fine. You can also add a little bit of sea salt flakes on here to create an abrasive, which also extracts moisture and produces more flavor, but it depends on how you want to do it. You can also run them along a microplane. Last but not least for the prep, here is 50 grams of basil, and that weight does include the stems. We want about 30 grams of the leaves, and we're just going to pick these off of the stems, but don't throw those away. You can use them in other recipes to infuse into sauces. Now with the leaves, you can either roughly chop them or tear them by hand. It is completely up to you. It doesn't matter if there's a little bit of stem in here as well, it just adds more flavor. Just make sure that that stem is broken down, leaving us with a nice roughly chopped basil leaf. Now getting into the cooking, place a large pot of water over a high heat. We're going to bring this to a boil and then generously season with salt. Add in 400 grams of spaghetti or a pasta of your choice. I do recommend spaghetti on this one, and then we're going to allow it to sit for 20 seconds just to soften up, then stir it through the water and occasionally mix this through just so it doesn't stick throughout the cooking process, and cook this for 1 minute less than the packet instructions. With the pasta doing its thing in the background, place a large pan over a medium-high heat. We can add in that sun-dried tomato oil or olive oil, depending on what you choose to use. And then we're going to add in those cherry tomatoes, along with the sun-dried tomatoes, which are again optional. Add in that chopped garlic, and then follow this up with a pinch of sugar. This roughly weighs about 7 grams. It's just going to help caramelize everything and also add a little bit of sweetness. Sea salt flakes to taste, and of course cracked black pepper. 20 cracks worth. Let's then get in there with a spatula or a spoon, mix this all around for those flavors to become friends, and saute for about 4 minutes. During this time, the flavors will develop really well and that sugar will start to caramelize. The tomatoes will start to break down a little bit with the skins start to crack. You can either break them down or leave them whole. I recommend leaving them whole because in the end result, you'll have these little bursts of flavor. It tastes absolutely incredible. Now after 4 minutes, the tomatoes are looking nice and soft. They're obviously still intact. We're going to continue cooking this for about 3 to 4 minutes just until the pasta is cooked. But once that is done, we can then directly transfer the pasta straight from the water into the sauce. It is okay to bring along a little bit of that pasta water, not too much, you don't need a whole great deal, and this is going to help the sauce stick to the pasta. At this stage, we can also add in the basil leaves. You can leave a little bit behind to garnish the end product if you wanted to, but with all of that in, this can then just be folded through gently, and you can also check it for seasoning at this stage. But with all of that done and you have a nice looking pasta like this, we can then remove it from the stovetop. Everyone serves pasta differently. You can spiral it if you're trying to look a little bit fancy, but I like to just place it in a bowl. But then we're going to top this off with those cherry tomatoes and the sun-dried tomatoes as well, making sure that there's an even amount. This also does serve 3 to 4 people depending on portion size. Garnishes for this dish are completely optional. I'm just hitting it up with a little bit of freshly grated parmesan. The amount is completely up to you, as well as some cracked black pepper, and of course extra virgin olive oil. But with all of that done, we are then left with this absolutely incredible, super tasty cherry tomato pasta that is literally ready in the time it takes to cook pasta. As always, we are then left with the best part about cooking, and that is we can make everything worthwhile, and we can then dig in. This is everything you want from a pasta. It's slightly sweet, it's a little bit salty, it is extremely easy to make, it's cheap and tastes absolutely incredible. I really recommend you try this recipe. If you can, please hit that like button, it helps me out more than you think, and consider subscribing. We're so close to 500,000. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.